Right, so we're going to talk about the Von Erich family. So they are an American professional wrestling family, originally from Texas. Their surname is Atkinson, but every member working in wrestling has used the ring name Von Erich after the family patriarch Fritz von Erich, who used his mother's maiden name Erich, adding the Von. In total, 10 members of the family have wrestled since Fritz debut in 1953, who two still active today. In the 20th century, the family primarily wrestled in NWA and their own world-class championship wrestling promotion, the latter featuring them as central heroic characters. Fritz and his wife Doris had 6 children between 1952 and 1969, all sons. Their firstborn, Jack Jr., died at 6 years old. All their surviving sons grew up to become professional wrestlers. By the time Fritz died of cancer in 1997, at the age of 68, 5 of his sons had predeceased him, in addition to Jack Jr., who drowned in a freak accident in 1959. David died from enteritis in 1984 at the age of 25. Mike and Chris and Kerry all died by suicide, respectively, in 1987 at age 23, 1991 at 21, and 1993 at age 33. Kevin, Fritz's only surviving son, retired from wrestling in 1995. Von Erich's involvement in wrestling now is in its third generation. Kerry's daughter Lacey wrestled from 2007 to 2010, and Kevin's son Marshall and Ross have wrestled since 2012, at times as a tag team named Von Erichs, as several unrelated wrestlers have also been presented as on-screen members of the Von Erich family. So, the deaths of Kevin's brothers are primarily the basis for widespread myth of the about a family curse. The term Von Erich curse is also used colloquially as to refer to a chain of events leading to each brother's death, as well as associated tragedies, such as the death of David's 2-month-old daughter from SIDS in 1978. The story of the Von Erichs family has been presented as a cautionary tale about parental influence and various stages of professional wrestling business. They remain one of the best-known families in professional wrestling, both for their accomplishments and their tragic personal history. Fritz and all 5 of his wrestler sons were collectively inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame in 2009, and he, David, Kerry, and Kevin were all individually inducted into the St. Louis Hall of Fame between 2007 and 2016. The family has objected to the Dark Side of the Ring episode in 2019, and the 2023 biblical film The Iron Claw, titled after the Von Erichs' signature move. Now we're going to get into each individual one. So Fritz von Erich was born Jack Barton Atkinson in 1929 in Jewett, Texas. Originally trained by Stu Hart, Fritz was a top star in many NWA promotions, most notably St. Louis in the WCCW, and he held the AWA World Heavyweight Championship at one time in the 60s. Despite never winning the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, he maintained his presence within the NWA, holding many other major belts. Fritz also served briefly as NWA president in the 70s, as well as president of the WCCW when it turned to Dallas, Texas, moved into Dallas, Texas. Fritz was also a major part of Japanese wrestling, where he was known as the Tetsu no Tsusun, the Iron Claw, and helped rebuild the business after the death of Dozen. Fritz married Doris in 1950, and they had 6 sons before divorcing in 1992. And in 1997, Fritz died from lung cancer that had spread to his brain. So now we're into the second generation. So Jack Atkinson Jr., Fritz von Erich's first son, was born on September 21st, 1952. He died at the age of 6 in Niagara Falls, New York, in 1959, after he stepped onto a trailer tongue, was accidentally electrically shocked, then fell into a melting snow puddle face first and drowned. Now we're going to get into Kevin. So, born Kevin Ross Atkinson in Bentonville, Illinois, the Golden Warrior Kevin Von Erich was the second oldest surviving son of the Fritz, and the last surviving son of Fritz von Erich. The majority of Kevin's career was spent working for WCCW, where he held feuds with including Chris Adams, the Fabulous Freebirds, and Ric Flair. There, Kevin became known as the utilised trademark maneuvers like the body scissors and the iron claw, as well as known for his wrestling barefoot. Um, so Kevin and Pamela J married on August 1st, 1980, and they have 4 children, including 2 daughters, Kristen Rain and Gillian Lindsay, and as well as 2 sons, David Michael Ross and Kevin Marshall. Kevin has 13 grandchildren, and in May 2006, Kevin sold the WCCW footage to Vince McMahon and WWE at WrestleMania 25. Kevin represented the Von Erich family during the induction to the WWE Hall of Fame. In 2015, Kevin appeared in an SBN short film titled Wrestling the Curse. So now we're going to get into David Von Erich. The Yellow Rose of Texas, David Von Erich was the third son of Fritz Von Erich. He was born David Allen Atkinson in Dallas in 1958. David worked in WCCW promotion. It was there where he faced off with Harley Race and later Ric Flair several times for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, but never won. As well as he teamed with his brothers Kevin and Kerry against the Fabulous Freebirds. David also wrestled in Missouri, winning the Missouri Heavyweight Championship for a couple of occasions. From late 1981 to mid-1982, David wrestled in the Florida territory to show that he could work as a heel. This run was successful, and David enjoyed his brief reign as both single and tag team champion. David was married in 1978 to Candy Lee McLeod. Together they had a daughter, Natasha Sienna. The baby died in infancy, and David's marriage soon ended in divorce in 1979. He married again, Patricia A. Mater, in 1982, and they remained together until David's death. David died in 1984 in Tokyo. The US Embassy's death report says he died from enteritis. Ric Flair rated in his autobiography that to be the man that everyone in wrestling believes that it was a drug overdose that really killed him. And that Bruiser Brody, a fellow wrestler who found David, disposed of the narcotics and flushed them down the toilet before the police arrive. Mick Foley also claims that David died from apparent drug overdose. A tribute show was held a couple of months later in his honour, during which his younger brother, Kerry Von Erich, won the NWA World title from Ric Flair. Now we're going to talk about Kerry Von Erich, which I think most people know because he was in WWE, whereas the others weren't. He's probably the second most well known after his dad. So Kerry Von Erich was the 4th son of Fritz Von Erich. He was born Kerry Jean Atkinson on 3rd of February 1960, the same birthday as me, in Niagara Falls, New York, known as the Modern Day Warrior and the Texas Tornado. Kerry was by far the best known of the Von Erichs, much like his brothers. Kerry spent the majority of his career in WCCW. Amongst many major feuds he had, those against Gino Hernandez, Iceman Parsons, Chris Adams, and the Fabulous Freebirds. Kerry became the most successful of the Von Erichs family when he won the NWA World Heavyweight title from Ric Flair at the David Erich Von Erich Memorial Parade Champions, a tribute show of his deceased older brother. Kerry lost the belt 3 weeks later to Flair. Kerry also wrestled several months on the ring, named Texas Tornado, in both WWF and GWF. Kerry married on June 18th, 1983 to Kathy Murray. Together they had 2 daughters, Holly Brock and Lacey Dawn. Lacey wrestled for 7 years, most notably with TNA as Lacey Von Erich, before leaving the wrestling business in 2010. Kerry and Catherine Lacey separated before divorcing in 1992. In On June 4th, 1986, Kerry was involved in a motorcycle accident while attempting to pass a truck in a two-lane road. Von Erich crashed into the back of a police car, resulting in a wreck caused his right foot and a dislocated hip. Matters were made worse sometime later when Von Erich attempted to walk and he was on his already damaged foot well before it healed. As a result, his foot was amputated. He continued to wrestle after the accident, and with prosthetics, he kept the amputation a secret from the majority of fans and fellow wrestlers. He became addicted to painkillers, developed several drug problems, and was arrested multiple times. He ended up dying from suicide. He shot a 44 caliber bullet in his heart, and on February 18th, 1993, on his father's ranch. There is a marker of the angel placed by his father Fritz on the spot that Kerry shot himself. He said in his autobiography, Hitman, the real life of the cartoon world of wrestling, Kerry had told him months before about his plans and that he wanted to follow his late brothers, and they were calling him. His marriage had fallen apart and he thought that his death was inevitable. So now we're going to get into Mike von Erich. Mike was the fifth son of Fritz. He was Michael Brett Atkinson, born March 2nd, 1964, in Dallas, and was later known as the Inspirational Warrior. Mike replaced David in the feud of the Von Erichs with the Fabulous Freebirds after David's death. According to the DVD Heroes of the World Class, Mike wanted to work for World Class as a cameraman, had no interest in being in the ring full time. His only previous appearance on screen was being involved in an angle with Ric Flair, insulted him and wrestled him as a run-up to the planned David winning the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, but Fritz pressured Mike into the ring after David's death. Kevin once stated that Mike suffered from pressure from being to be David and succeed on the same level as his older brothers. Mike was married in 1985 to Shani Garza, but they divorced later the same year. In 1985, he injured his shoulder on a tour in Israel and had surgery leading to toxic shock syndrome. As there was an infection missed by the surgeons, he suffered brain damage as a result of the illness and lost a great deal of weight. In 1986, he also suffered head injuries from a car accident, which the vehicle overturned after he lost control. Mike tried returning to wrestling as a partial recovery. He continued to compete despite a lack of mental coordination and strength. After an arrest of DUI and marijuana possession, Mike took a fatal overdose of tranquilizers and alcohol. And around April 12th, 1987, near the entrance of Pilot Canal Park at Louisville Lake, he was missing for 4 to 5 days, with the date of death being set as Sunday after bailing out of jail. Right, so we're going to the last of the second generation, Chris von Erich. He was born Chris Barton Atkinson on September 30th, 1969 in Dallas. Chris von Erich was the youngest of the Von Erich families, with his short stature of 5'5", asthma and extremely brittle bones, which were prone to breaking. Chris was never able to achieve the success of his father and his brothers achieved. He was made many attempts to succeed in the square circle, but of his incredible love of wrestling, which kept him going despite numerous injuries, he managed to be in a major feud with Percy Pringle in the USWA World Class, but his career did not take off. The rest of the families. On an occasion, he and his brothers Kerry and Kevin, as well as Chris Adams, wrestled tag team matches against Percy Pringles and Steve Austin. But Chris only wrestled Pringle, while much more athletic Adams, Kerry and Kevin wrestled Austin. After several years of not being succeeded in the wrestling business, Chris became depressed and frustrated. He also heartbroken over the loss of his brother, Mike, and experienced a drug addiction. On September 12, 1991, aged 21, he shot himself in the head. His brother Kevin and mother attempted to dissuade him from the suicidal tendencies of that same day. As a apparent suicide note had been found at the scenes of Edmund Edom, Texas, toxicology report also revealed that cocaine and Valium were in Chris's system at the time of his death. Right, so we're getting to the third generation now. So Ross von Erich, David Michael Ross Atkinson, better known as Ross von Erich, is the son of Kevin von Erich. His name is after David and Mike. He was trained by Kevin, Harley Race, and wrestling Noah Dojo. Ross returned to Texas to attend college in 2008. According to his family website, he reportedly has wrestled a couple of times. In a 2010 interview, Ross stated that he and his brother Marshall was also training to become professional wrestlers. They debuted as a tag team Pro Wrestling Noah in 2012. Ross and Marshall made their national television debut, part of TNA Slammiversary pay-per-view on June 15th, 2014 in a tag team, defeating the Bromans via disqualification. In 2017, Ross, alongside his brother Marshall and father Kevin, wrestled for Rage Mega Show in Israel. In 2019, Ross and Marshall signed to a multi-year contract with MLW. So now we're going to get into Marshall von Erich. So Kevin Marshall Atkinson, better known as Marshall von Erich, is son of Kevin von Erich. His name is after his father. He was trained by Kevin, Harley Race, and the Noah Dojo, and in 2012 he debuted with his brother in Pro Wrestling Noah. He adopted his father's trademark wrestling barefoot. Marshall and Ross made their national television debut at Slammiversary, where he defeated the Bromans. The brothers in 2015 debuted in Imperial Wrestling Revolution, their new home promotion. They won the IWR Tag Team Championships and Arrow Club in 2017. In July 2017, Marshall, alongside his brother Ross and father Kevin, wrestled at Rage Mega Show in Israel. And in May 2019, Marshall and Ross signed to MLW. Now we're going to get into Lacey von Erich. So Lacey Dawn von Erich, or Lacey Dawn Atkinson, known as Lacey von Erich, is the daughter of Kerry von Erich. She has previously been in the WWE and TNA, where she was former TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champion, but she retired in 2010. Right, so we've got some fictional characters we've got to go into of the von Erich family. So we've got Walter von Erich. That's the stage name of Canadian professional wrestler Walter Schreiber. Though billed as the brother as Fritz von Erich when they teamed, they were not related to at all, and he died in 2009. But Lance von Erich, that was the stage name of Dallas-born wrestler William Kevin Ricky Vaughn. He was billed a brief period of time in the 80s as the son of Waldo von Erich, but there's no biological relation between those two. Lance was also no relation to the von Erich family. And then you got Rip von Erich. So 2 episodes of the MWA Fusion, Tom Lawler, who was involved in the feud with Von Erichs, after turning his back on them, emotionally beat and aligned himself with the wrestler he called Rip Von Erich, now also played by the wrestler who had previously gone under the name Kit Osborne in other promotions. And you got Mike Von Erich, who's known as Rick Rabuse, I think that's how you say it, is a Texas-based wrestler who has been billed as Mark Von Erich since the 1990s. Eventually became a storyline in GWF with Skandor Akbar accusing Laribus of being legitimate son of Fritz Von Erich. So on March 16th, 2009, it was announced that 6 members of the Von Erich family would be inducted into the Hall of Fame. The recipient are Fritz and all 5 of his sons, who became professional wrestlers: Kevin, David, Kerry, Mike, and Chris. They were inducted by longtime Von Erich rival Michael P.S. Hayes, with Kevin, the sole living inductee, accepting the induction ceremony. And then in popular culture, the A24 film The Iron Claw takes its title from the wrestling movie that the several family members used. The movie portrays the Von Erich family for the 70s, 80s and 90s, directed by Sean Durkin. The film stars Zac Efron, Lily James, Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickens, Maura Tierney, and Chavo Guerrero Jr. and Holt McCauley. Obviously everyone knows about the curse. Well, the supposed curse, because most of the sons are set for Kevin had died. But obviously, if it was a real curse, it's obviously stopped at Kevin and his sons and Lacey von Erich. But obviously, everyone knows them. Everyone thinks it's the tragedies of the majority of them dying. Obviously, it's quite sad. So obviously, knowing what had happened, some of the suicides kind of made sense in a way, because obviously, when you're struggling, obviously people will do whatever they think is right. So obviously a couple of them thought that was the only way out. But I think it was just a bad luck of them all suffering from something mentally. And obviously back in those days, wrestlings, they were a lot more harder during training, so it probably didn't help. And obviously with I think it was Chris, he was quite small and he just couldn't do it, but he wanted to, so that caused him to struggle a bit. And then obviously you had a couple of others who had suffered some kind of way mentally to cause them to want to do that to themselves. They didn't find a way out, but there's other ways of dealing with it now. But yeah, they will always be remembered as one of the best families in wrestling, along with the Hearts and the Guerreros and the Flairs, who do wrestle regularly, because obviously the Hearts still have quite a lot of them, a lot of people wrestling. So do the Guerreros, with Chavo still wrestling, even though he's in his 50s, not very often though. And then you've got Shaw, who used to wrestle, and then you've also got the Flairs. Obviously, I think that's going to probably going to end with Charlotte, because they don't really have any grandkids, like any more kids in the family, so it's probably just going to finish there. But yeah, that's the Von Erichs. I just thought I'd record another one and then put it out the next tomorrow or something, I'm not sure. Because I just put one out on the Shield, so I might put this one out tomorrow.